How you going? How's it doing? Ugh, I can't even start a show anymore. How's it going, everybody? This is Dave Meltzer. We're going to be here for the next 2 hours talking about pro wrestling. We've got Brian Alvarez of Figure 4 Weekly here, and we're also going to be joined by all-pro wrestling promoter Roland Alexander. We'll be talking about current wrestling scene and whatever you guys want to talk about. Brian, how are you today?
I'm doing good.
That's good. Got a couple of news notes before we talk about SmackDown, which actually did a very impressive rating last night. It did a 4.1 rating, which is shockingly good going against the final episode of Survivor, which did a 20.1. Which also interesting is that the rating on the overnights was not good at all. Not that it was terrible, but it indicated a much lower rating. But anyway, we can, I guess, talk a little bit about the show in just a second. Did you watch Rock on the MTV Diaries thing last night?
No, I didn't get a chance to see it.
Okay. I thought he came off real well. I mean, there was nothing. If you missed it, it's not like I would tell anyone, go out of your way to see it. It's a must-see. But you know how, like, a lot of times when wrestlers or wrestling personalities, like Lou Albano or Vince McMahon, yeah, like they're in public and you just go, oh, God, I'm so embarrassed that I'm a wrestling fan. And I'm thinking, you know what I mean? I mean, yeah. Rock is like the opposite. I mean, he really doesn't say anything. His delivery is really good. It's kind of like a Ric Flair in that, he's out there and he doesn't, he certainly doesn't, he puts over the profession, and says, basically the right things and, seems like a guy who has his head on straight, whether he does or he doesn't, he comes across tremendous and, I know he did the Today Show today. I think he's doing Craig Kilborn tonight. I saw the Roger Ebert review of The Mummy, Mummy Returns, which starts tonight, and he's listed as one of the stars, and he said that calling it a cameo would be generous, that he's really not in that many scenes, and I don't think he actually has a speaking role at all, but he's getting a lot of pub, and a lot of talk about him being the next big action hero in the movie, so, and of course he's going to be filming Scorpion King all summer. So anyway, he's pretty much in the news. Let me see. Here's the Roger Ebert review. Do I got it? This is what Roger Ebert said. The ads give The Rock, the WF star, equal billing with Brendan Fraser. This is bait and switch. That's a funny word. You used to use that in wrestling all the time, right? Bait and switch. Right. Yeah. To call his appearance a cameo would be stretching it. I continue to believe The Rock has an acting career ahead of him, and after seeing this movie, it's still ahead of him. So he happens to like him because they met on I think it was the Jay Leno show. And got along real well. Let's see what else is going on. Actually, not a whole hell of a lot else. As far as the negotiations between WWF and TNN for the WCW show, everything's going along real smoothly. The deal is not finalized. It's looking like a start date of June 16th or the 23rd right now, but again, nothing is official on that account. Let me see if there's any other stuff to talk about. Nevada, on the 21st, there's a meeting on 9 a.m. on May 21st at the Nevada State Athletic Commission offices. The purpose of the meeting is to solicit comments from people addressing regulation of mixed martial arts. So that's step one and also Tough Man. So that's step one as far as getting UFC and Pride. Pride I know is real strong on wanting to get into Las Vegas sometime, maybe by the end of this year, next year.
So, where are the comments coming from? Like the promoters and the fighters?
John McCain? From any interested people. If John McCain wants to come, he can come. If the fighters want to come, if the promoters want to come. The meeting is May 21st. I know the Pride people are going to be going. The Pride people and the K1 people, as a matter of fact. K1's doing their show. K1 is doing their show tomorrow night in Vegas. And I know that their meeting. I know that Ishii's coming. Of course, for that show, I know that there's meetings scheduled with some pro wrestling people, with both Pride and K1, over the next short period of time. So, there may be some involvement there. And let me see what else. Actually, that's pretty much the major stuff except for SmackDown. Brian, what do you think of SmackDown?
I mean, it was okay. I think it was a little bit better than Raw, but, overall, the big surprise was Rikishi, and maybe it was just me, but when Vince McMahon came out at the end of the show and he said, "Here is the mystery man, it is Rikishi," and everybody started booing, to me it was like the wrong kind of heel heat. It was like, oh my God, you promised a secret guy this whole show and it's Rikishi. And it was Rikishi, and Undertaker couldn't even beat him. And we talked a couple days ago about Vince Russo and joking that he's got to be back writing, but total sports entertainment finish. No finish at all. Undertaker hits him with a chair. Referee doesn't even ring the bell. He signals for Undertaker's music instead, apparently, and he played that as showing off the air. But, it was another one of those shows where it's like they had 2 or 3 weeks' worth of angles with Steve Austin and the glass in his eye, and they just packed it all into one show. Yeah, the incident at the beginning of the show where he goes through the window. Then they have some stuff a little bit later where, the hospital scene, Vince and Stephanie coming out and talking about it, then Austin finally coming back. And it's like, why couldn't you stretch this out over a couple more weeks? Is it that important to get everything into one SmackDown show?
I can tell you why, and the
why
reason
the hell
is,
was Austin out of the hospital if he still had glass in his eye?
Well, I can tell you the reason. The reason is because they got a pay-per-view tomorrow in London, and they're not going to do the pay-per-view without Steve Austin wrestling.
Oh, that's right.
So he had to be
Good
fined
plan.
by the end of SmackDown, which means that it probably wasn't the right
Why couldn't they do this
time.
angle on Monday then after the pay-per-view?
Probably because then they don't want to lose him for the next week's worth of house shows. That's the problem where you don't want to lose, where you want to do an injury angle, but you don't want a guy to miss dates. You always have a problem when you try to book like that.
Yeah.
The old days.
I didn't think that. We've seen it before. The whole ambulance deal, where Austin gets loaded in the ambulance, or whoever gets loaded in the ambulance, and someone else is driving. And it was the same thing last night. But actually, I was amused by what happened last night. Part of it was just Austin. Austin is such a great heel because he's one of those heels where he's really evil, but he thinks that he's not being evil. And it's just so awesome the way he does it. And then he's strapped in, and he's in his gurney, and Undertaker's punching him. And I thought that was pretty cool, but, overall the show was just another show.
I like that angle so much better when they did it in 1997. Really? So much better. Oh, so much better. When it was Austin and Bret Hart, I just thought there's so much more depth to it. Like when they were wheeling Bret Hart, and they would go over that cord, and Owen Hart would get mad and goes, "This is $1 million player," and things. There's just so much more to it than this.
This was almost more comedy.
Yeah. And then when when Undertaker is, when Undertaker is shown as the driver, it's just almost like it was expected. Mm-hmm. It was just weird, though, just watching,
I don't know if it was so much expected by the fans in attendance, because they were really quiet during this angle, and as soon as he popped his head out, they just went insane. So I don't know if it was because they expected it and that they got what they wanted, or if it was like a total surprise to them. Yeah. Because, I don't know, maybe it was just, because we knew it was going to happen as of Tuesday, but I don't know.
It's just every time there's an ambulance to drive, it's like the gimmick, Anyway, I think that there's something about Hunter running around in a supposed hospital in wrestling trunks that I found just so ludicrous and
funny. When the intern came up to him?
Yeah.
I thought the intern was going to go, "Excuse me, sir, you've got to put a shirt on."
I was thinking he was going to go, "You must put your pants on, where this is a public hospital. What are you doing dressed like this?" Arrest you for being lewd or something in public. Let me see what else.
What? I never ever have dreams about wrestling, but get this. Last night I had a dream about wrestling. Oh. And I dreamt I was watching SmackDown again, and you'll never guess what I dreamed. I dreamed that Hunter was back at the SmackDown tapings after he'd been arrested. Analyze that.
He wanted to be. Do you know that story?
I think that I saw. Was it remote viewing?
Okay, no. There was a big. I don't want to say a big fight because that's making it much bigger than it really was. There was an animated discussion among parties of who wanted Hunter and didn't want Hunter to in fact be back for that final segment. And obviously he lost that one because they arrested him. Your vision was what many people's angle was, as a matter of fact.
Wow, that's scary.
So, Hunter, I tell you what, what's funny is Hunter and Jeff Hardy, I thought had probably the worst of all the matches because Raven and X-Pac was a good match. Bob Holly and Kurt Angle was very good, kind of goofy but very good. The Edge and Christian match with Rhino and Matt Hardy and Chris Jericho was the best match on the show. And am I missing something? Undertaker and Rikishi. Well, that was that one may have been worse actually because there was nothing.
Rikishi's gotten really, really heavy.
Well, he hasn't been in the ring for a month.
Yeah.
Yeah, he gained some weight.
The thing about Hunter and Jeff Hardy, it was like the interference happened. Austin is sitting there doing commentary, and Undertaker comes out, and it distracts Hunter. And as a result, Jeff goes for his Pescado or whatever, and Hunter just sidesteps him, pins him, and then gets back to the real business. And it just made Jeff Hardy look like such a goof.
Didn't it, though? Let's see. Yoshihiro Tajiri was called in Japan, and they want him at TV Monday. I don't know if that means he's going to do a dark match, do a syndicated match, do a run-in. But anyway, he got the call. So he may be on TV Monday. And I'm trying to think what else, if there's anything else on that show. Nothing else. I thought Taz was a lot better. I guess that's my only other comment on the show.
Mm-hmm.
Thought he was doing pretty good. Any other news?
That's it.
Any thoughts on tonight's... are you going to watch tonight's pay-per-view?
Actually, I'm going to get a tape, and it's absolutely positive this time because I've already paid. So I better get a tape.
Any thoughts on the show as far as Randy Couture, Pedro Hizzo? Predictions?
I haven't seen like a whole lot of Pedro Hizzo, but like for Randy Couture, he was always the guy that I'd look at him and I would think, this guy really doesn't have anything, but he would always pull it out. That's the impression I always got. I never saw Randy Couture as like, you look at him and you go, this guy is a killer. This guy's a great fighter, but he'd always win.
He's a really good wrestler, and he's not a quitter. He's a very mentally tough guy. I think he's going to lose though tonight. I think that the key is Couture has to keep Pedro Hizzo on the ground, and even keeping him on the ground, I don't know. Standing up, Pedro Hizzo is just too good standing up for Randy Couture, so he's got to take him down. He's good enough to take him down, but he's got to keep taking him down over and over again. You know what I mean? Because if the guy gets any time on his feet, he's got wicked leg kicks. And if he hits a couple of those leg kicks, Randy's not going to have the leg drive to be able to take him down. And then standing up, he'll get knocked out if Pedro's aggressive enough. So I'll go with Pedro Hizzo. Let's see what the other stuff. Semi Shield Pete Williams should be real interesting. Because you got a guy with so much reach. And, when you got a guy who's like 6'10" and a half and is coordinated, and, he throws a knee. He can get that knee so high. If you bend down for where he's dangerous if you're watching this fight. If you go in for a takedown, the key is if you're a kickboxer and a guy goes for a takedown, you're supposed to knee him in the face as he comes in, which is much easier said than done. But when you're 6'10" and a half, your knee, it's easy, it's far more dangerous.
High.
Yeah, he can go so high with the knee, and that's his number one weapon is knees on the shoot. He's beaten a lot of guys and busted a lot of guys up, so that's that one. Pat Miletich, Carlos Newton, very interesting fight too. Pat Miletich is healthy, Anyway, so much for that. Let me get to some emails. This is from Steve McCann, who goes, I just finished watching.
Don't forget, Dave's going to be doing live every 5 minutes, play-by-play on the website.
After every round, we'll be doing updates. We got a full house here tonight too, so it's going to be a real busy night here. But we'll be doing that tonight, and also we'll be doing match by match tomorrow of Insurrection. So I'll be hanging around by the computer all day and updating it after every match. And also tomorrow morning, as soon as I wake up, which will not be early because I'm sure there'll be people over here till 2 a.m. So this will probably be close to 2 in the afternoon Eastern time. But I will have stuff up for the Fukuoka Dome as far as results, and hopefully I don't know this, but I expect at least a couple of live feedbacks from people, either if nothing else watching it on television because it's on national TV there. So it's going to be a big weekend the next couple of days, today and tomorrow anyway, on the website after the show is over. Okay, let's see. I just finished watching the Triple H Jeff Hardy match on SmackDown. Did Hunter think he put Jeff over too much the last match because Jeff ended up looking even worse this time? After Undertaker chased Austin and distracted Triple H, Jeff still got nothing in. What's worse is that Triple H treated him like an afterthought, pedigreed him, and then went after Austin. It came off.
Yeah, that's the whole thing, the afterthought. That's a good word.
Yeah.
Totally what he did. It was just like, oh my God, I got to go help Austin. Wait, I got to beat this guy first.
Yeah.
Dude,
it came
10 seconds.
It came off like Triple H showed a lot of concern for Austin and that Jeff was never a threat. See, that's the thing. When I was watching it, it was like, God, Jeff is not, at no point in this match was Jeff ever even a threat to be competitive, let alone a threat to win. Mm-hmm. And Hunter could finish him off whenever he wanted. The Hardys are left in the ring looking like losers. It doesn't help that the two guys, Matt and Jeff, and that Lita's the only one who gets face chance in their matches. Let's see. What exactly was the mindset behind the WF's Brawl for All semi-shoot? Hey, it was a lot more than semi, let me tell you. Tournament a few years back. Was the WF's attempt at adding shoot elements in the promotion similar to Inoki's booking New Japan? No, it was an idea that they had.
Williams over.
Yeah, the idea was it was to get Steve Williams over and just to do something. You remember they're in the middle of a promotional war that was really tight, and it was just an idea to do something that the other group wouldn't have the guts to do. And someone came up with the idea, and they didn't realize how many people were going to get hurt doing it, and the fact that Steve Williams wasn't actually going to win, and it was just a bad idea.
Who came up with that idea?
I have always been told that it was Russo, so that's what I've always been told. But you see, this is one of those things where before it happens, a lot of people were taking credit for it, and then after it was over, nobody was taking credit for it, so I don't know. Let's see. Let's see.
It just sounds like such a Russo idea, the whole reality-based.
Well, I mean, what's so bad about it is that it looked so different from everything else on the show that it was almost like, like sometimes, yeah, well, it's almost like, like in Japan where if you do like those work shoot matches. I mean, like if you do a work shoot match and a shoot match on the same show, it's okay because the work shoot match theoretically looks the same as the shoot match conceptually, except it's not real or it's predetermined or however you determine what that means. But if you do a pro wrestling style match and a shoot style match on the same show like New Japan does, it's just really weird because it's like kind of like saying that one of these styles is either one of these styles is not entertaining or the other style is not real. You're saying that, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Let's see. I love your show. Okay. I've got a couple questions. Whatever happened to Steve McMichael and John Arezzi? I have no idea. And he just goes, oddly enough for John Arezzi, 3 of his one-time closest buddies in the wrestling profession all reached superstar heights. Cactus Jack, that's right, that was John Arezzi's best friend in wrestling. Vince Russo, who was, in fact, with John Arezzi at the beginning. And Paul Heyman. So, I guess they were friends, but I mean, everyone then knew Paul Heyman. Do you know what percentage of WF revenue is generated by products sold to children? I don't think anyone knows that because when you go to the stands, I mean, when you go to the stores and everything, generally speaking, a lot of the products are bought by adults for children. I mean, like, very rarely does a kid, like, go in there with a credit card, you know what I mean? Like an 8-year-old with a credit card going like, so, I mean, there's
so
really...
many people collect the dolls and everything like that it's hard to tell. I guess the only way you could really tell is, like, child-sized t-shirts.
Yeah. I think, yeah, but that's just t-shirts. That's not like the dolls or anything.
Yeah.
So, anyway, let me get one more and we'll hit a break. Please put something on the IATA or Observer site about the ratings of the XFL, how to calculate ratings, all the stuff that gets asked over. Oh, there's someone who's like, okay, the number of homes, you take the number of homes that are watching the show, okay, and you divide it by the total number of homes that get the show, that can possibly get the show. Not the number of homes watching television at that moment, but the number of homes that have access to that channel, and that
I think
percentage...
you should write this down and put it on the website.
Becomes the rating. Anyway, that is what it is. We'll have Roland Alexander of All Pro Wrestling up in a couple of minutes. Also want to remind you, next week's guest schedule, we're working on Terry Funk. Hopefully we'll get him on early in the week. That's not a definite yet, but he will be on in the next couple of weeks. Wednesday is Bobby Heenan. Thursday is Nick Bockwinkel. And Friday is Tony Jones of All Pro Wrestling. This is who came up with the sharpshooter first, Bret Hart or Sting? Yeah. The actual answer to that one is Masa Saito, as far as I know, was the first guy I ever saw do that move. But it even goes back further than that. A move very similar to the Scorpion.
Wasn't Owen's gimmick that he did it before Bret?
I don't think Owen did it before Bret. He may have. He may have because Owen was working Japan before Bret ever did the move. But I mean, in the WWF, Bret did it first. And Sting did it before Bret. But the guy who popularized it was Ricky Choshu. And then what happened was, I mean, it was even though Masa Saito did it before Choshu. And Saito got it as an offshoot of the Texas Cloverleaf, which was known as the Texas Crowbar Hold, that Terry Funk popularized in Japan long before the Scorpion Deathlock. And I don't know where Terry Funk got it from. Maybe we can ask him. But it was... I mean, that hold was done before, but I remember the Texas Crowbar hold, and then Masaito doing the Scorpion, and then Ricky Choshu became super, super hot in the early 80s, and it became his finisher. And then when he was doing it, he was so over, what would happen is Americans would go to New Japan Pro Wrestling for a tour and see this move, and then they would start, doing it, and Sting did it. Buddy Rose was one of the first ones to do it in the United States after doing a New Japan tour, and a bunch of guys after doing New Japan tours came in and did it, and Bret Hart being one of them, although I think Bret Hart learned it, or not learned it, but started doing it when they broke up the Hart Foundation tag team and he needed a singles finisher. So that's where the sharpshooter came. So anyway, I think that's the chronology of the Scorpion Deathlock. Let's see. What do we have here? If Joey Styles can sell presidential coins, surely Jim Cornette can sell vacuum cleaners. I suppose he could. Let's see what else we got here. More comments on China. Okay. Whatever happened to the Ultimate Warrior? He's in Phoenix. I don't know. Who wrestled with Jonathan Boyd as the Royal Kangaroos team on the West Coast? That was Norman Frederick Charles III, which I have a feeling is not his real name, but that's who it was. This Roland Alexander's up. Okay, we'll get to this one right here, and then we'll go to Roland. There's a bunch of questions here from Calvin, who says, with the WF's ratings, with WF not capturing the WCW audience, what does this mean? It just means it didn't capture that the WCW fans aren't watching TV anymore, right? Or not watching wrestling anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is the ratings process flawed, or where maybe a majority of the viewers are double counted? No, they're not double counted. They're just not. It's just it is. The process is not 100% accurate because every single home in the country is not hooked up. It's only a couple of thousand where they derive their information from.
But you could say that about any sampling if that's going to be your argument. Exactly.
But the thing is that whatever the flaw, 2 or 3% the flaw is, over the course of week in and week out, it's the most accurate thing we have, and it's pretty damn accurate. Just an example. Remember when WCW was always winning the ratings and people were going, it's flawed. Now when WWF won the ratings, how come no one said it was flawed then? Which is very weird. But when WCW was winning, not many people were trying to say how it was flawed, including people in WWF. And the thing is that 1 week's rating could be maybe a 4-1 in real life would be a 4-2. Okay? There could be a little bit of flaw, but when you're winning, when something is consistently, like television ratings of these TV shows, when you look week in and week out, the ratings are always pretty consistent, which means they're pretty damn accurate. If there was a big fluctuation, 1 week SmackDown got a 6, the next week it got a 3, the next week it got a 4, you would say, that's a pretty big variation. But when the difference is between a 4-9 or a 4-1 or a 3-7, and it's always in that ballpark, the numbers are pretty darn accurate.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's see. Seeing how Vince needs stiff competition to change his way of displaying the product, and he has no competition, what will happen if the WF self-implodes? I don't know what will happen. You'd have to look at the landscape at that moment. I don't know what's going to happen. WWF's not going to implode this year. To say it can't happen, it can happen. It definitely can happen. He goes, I believe the WF is going to fall apart. His attempt at the XFL should prove a point.
But he was totally out of his element. How does that prove that anything can happen to the WWF?
Yeah. Maybe in the next couple of years will be looked on as a blessing. When the bottom falls out of the industry, it allows a number of people to start out on a level playing field to build it up again. It all depends on the view of the television industry. That's the big problem is not the WF dominance. It's the fact that TV doesn't want wrestling. As far as getting new people to start up. If WF were to disappear and the TV companies had the feelings about wrestling that they have now, no one's going to take that place. If the WWF is super successful for the next couple of years and it leads to these TV stations going look how successful they are, we can do that too, it will lead to formation of other companies that may or may not be able to compete depending on how smart they're run and what the public wants. Maybe what the wrestling needs is a number of smaller regional promotions. It's not going back to regionals. I can give you the main reason why it's not going back to regionals is because technology doesn't go backwards, and for wrestling to go back to regionals, it means the entire business of cable television would have to go out of business and pay per. You know what I mean? Once you have pay per view and it's national, I shouldn't say that. If nobody had national TV. You could do that, but ultimately, if
someone's going to get it,
someone's going to get some form of national TV. If no one gets it, some regionals could come up, but that would require the TV industry. If no one's going to get it, it would require the TV industry to think so hideous of wrestling that only the weakest TV stations will pick it up. And then even though you could have regionals and you could have TV, the TV would be such weak TV that it's almost like not having TV. Do you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Because just an example, you go back 20 years, okay? And there's, let's say, 10 television stations in your market, okay? if wrestling's on one of those stations, the odds are it's going to have a pretty decent audience. Now, you put it on a weak station in a market now when you got 100 stations or 300 stations, depending on your cable and your satellite provider and all that. Just being on TV means nothing. And you know what I'm saying? Because people don't, the lowest rated TV show gets like microscopic ratings, whereas before even a low rated TV show would get like a decent rating just because there's only 10 TV shows. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, let's get Roland up because Roland actually can join in on this. Roland, what's going on?
How you doing, David? How you doing today?
We're doing really good. Doing really good.
Good. Hey, real quick before we go any further with this, I just wanted to give Brian a quick shout on I looked at his tapes and the other day I really wasn't expecting a whole lot, and I took a look at his tapes, and I got to tell you, Brian Alvarez is not a bad wrestler, and I'll be contacting you. Drop me an email with your phone number, Brian, and
we're gonna meet, Brian. We're gonna meet.
We've been avoiding each other for 2 straight years now. Come on.
Oh, my God, you're gonna wrestle out here, and then I'm gonna go to the show for sure.
No, I'm serious. I looked at the tape, and I wasn't expecting much, and I think the first stuff that was on one of the tapes, I came real close to just turn it off, and then I gave it a little bit more of a chance, and I kept looking, and the more I looked, the more I was very impressed with
But he needs a new ring outfit, doesn't he?
Yeah, he definitely needs a new ring outfit.
My khakis?
Yeah, you gotta get.
I wore tights one day, and they told me to put the khakis back on.
Did they really?
Old school. I struggle with all these different new outfits they keep coming out with, where nobody. I'm from the school where you just wear trunks and that's it.
Well, I don't mind colorful outfits, but to me it just should look like it's like when you go to the Brian. I'll just give you an example. This is my mentality. When you go to the gym and everything, and you see those guys that wear their like pants, their real pants when they work out,
and everything.
Their jeans or their like dress pants, and they're training. You kind of think of them as geeks, don't you? Okay, that's
yes, I do,
where I'm
actually.
Okay, so like I don't mind like if you have like a real colorful looking outfit that it's not like traditional trunks or anything like that, but when it's just like the pants that you walk around and it's sort of like I came to the dressing room and I'm just taking my shirt off and going into the ring. You know what I mean?
Well, actually, Buddy Wayne almost died one day because we had a street fight, and I literally came to the arena and wrestled in what I came to the arena in. And
that's okay for a street
another
fight.
Pair of jeans and stuff in his Halliburton, and it was like, why would you change the clothes you came in for a street fight into other street clothes?
Plus, I think in indie
but I learned my lesson.
I think a lot of indie wrestlers can't afford tanning bills, so they automatically wear the tights to cover up the pale legs.
That's true.
Oh, yeah. Now, Roland, you left a message on my machine, and I actually wrote about this a little bit. I know you're planning on a big show. Is it in October, or when you tell everyone about what your plans are?
I'm very excited about it. It's going to be a 2-day event. It's probably, APW, we're just an indie. We don't, we're not trying to fool anybody. We're just an indie out there, struggling, trying to go from day to day. But we've had quite a few accomplishments, I feel, people like, Spike Dudley. I'm real proud of him, showing up on WWF television. Hopefully he'll continue to get a chance to wrestle. And, and the Crash Holly and Michael Modest and Beyond the Mat. And I just feel we've had a lot of accomplishments. But one of the things I want to do, and I've always, I believe in giving young guys some exposure and trying to, play a part in them getting to the major leagues. And so I started this King of Indies, which is just a copy or a takeoff of Super 8. And we did it last year, and I got to be honest, even though it was the first one, and everybody kind of like says, okay, it was the first one, don't worry about it. But I was real disappointed with it. Not in the caliber of wrestling, but the venue that I held it in, the atmosphere of the crowd, the fact that, we still were in the babyface heel mode, and I just want to do a tournament where I showcase the top indie wrestlers in the country, and do it over a 2-day period, bring in more than 8, bring in 16 people. That way I can still utilize 6 to 8 of the APW wrestlers, because I still feel APW wrestlers are the top of the indie crop. And at the same time, I want to show, some of the other talent that's out there. And so I figured, you know what, I want to do this in a big way, and usually sometimes we don't plan these things out. So I'm starting like 6 months ahead of time and trying to put something together, and we're going to make like a big weekend out of it. And one of the things besides the indie tournament, 2-day tournament, and we're going to put storylines, APW storylines, babyface heel, all that aside, I want to tailor this almost so that it has the look of a Japanese tournament almost, where you're just showcasing talent. And in addition to that, we, like maybe, the Saturday afternoon or something. Well, it's going to be Friday, October 26th, Saturday, October 27th. Maybe that Saturday afternoon we do like a mini free camp for the boot camp, and when we have a boot camp session, I'm thinking of doing some kind of special ceremony to award, like Northern California wrestling legends, because that's what I grew up with, as you well know. You grew up with it too, David. We saw some of the best wrestlers that wrestling had to offer, guys like Ray Stevens and Pepper Gomez and Red Bastien, and Red's president of Cauliflower Alley, and we're big believers in working with Cauliflower. I might even do something to where, a portion of the ticket goes to Cauliflower Alley to help them out. And then the next day on Sunday, I would be hosting a Northern California, Wrestlers Legends reunion. And so just make a real big media event out of it, a whole big weekend.
The idea of a Northern California Wrestling Legends reunion, that might hit the media good, because you've got like people in the media who are now the same age as us, who actually grew up on these same people.
Grew up with it?
Yeah. I worry about like the fans. Like a lot of the fans today, they don't remember, heck, guys that were in the WWF in the early '80s, let alone guys like Stevens and stuff. And the other thing I worry about is the age of the guys. Like I know we lost Ray Stevens, so we don't have him. We had him. We actually hosted 2 reunions. I believe you went to one of them. And
I went to one where Ray Stevens was there. I remember that. Yeah,
it was a blast, and just
it was a blast.
Just watching these guys reminisce, and like I remember Mitsu Arakawa had called in, and he couldn't.
Right before he died, because I met his son.
Yeah,
David.
He was on the phone, and everybody went back, and like they were cutting promos on the phone with each other. It was just a lot of fun, and so I want to do that, but unfortunately, like the health of some are not there, and then some have passed on. So I'm going to get together with Red and see what we can do, and have an event to where everybody that holds a King of Indies package, they would get entry to both nights of the tournament and would be able to attend the Northern California Reunion Barbecue the next afternoon on Sunday, and just try to make it a big media event.
Well, I got a question. How's Kenji Shibuya doing, or do you know?
I think Kenji Shibuya is probably I haven't heard from him. He's very low key, and he always he's always constantly going back and forth between Japan and whatnot. But I think he's actually one of the healthier guys. Like every now and then I'll run into him at a restaurant or something, and he seems to be one of the healthier guys of all the legends that are still around, other than somebody like a Red who still has bad knees, but is not really that up there in age.
What about Paul Diamond? Paul Diamond he's in great shape.
Every year I see Paul Diamond, he actually looks better than the year before. I just saw him in February at Cauliflower Alley, and that guy he could actually get in the ring today probably. The guy's just got such a great look to him.
Yeah, it's funny, is he probably be a bigger star now than he was, because I remember Paul Diamond really didn't even get a big push. I mean, I remember the name.
No.
And then when I saw him at your reunion, this is many, many years ago now.
Uh-huh.
And boy, he could talk, and he was cocky, and he had charisma, and I don't
think Shires used Paul Diamond for his wrestling ability. I think he basically used him strictly for his good looks. And to be honest with you, I'm trying to remember, because I was like a teenager when he wrestled, and I was like probably 16, 17, maybe 15, right around there. And I remember, I don't think his body was as good back then as it is today, and I think he's got to be in his 60s. I think he's like 60. He
was 60 when I met him, so he's got to be 65, easy.
Yeah, maybe even 65, yeah. So,
yeah.
Tremendous body. And a storyteller. My God, I always try to catch up with him towards the end of Cauliflower Alley, because I know if I go at the beginning, I'll never leave, because he's just got story after story after story, and I'd never get to say hello to anybody else but him, so I always try to do him last.
Okay, we've got to head to a break. But one more thing I was going to say about Paul Diamond, if he came along now, Brian, his gimmick when he was brought to San Francisco in early 70s was the most handsome man in wrestling, and as a baby face. And can you imagine that gimmick today?
He passed roses out, didn't he, Dave? I think he passed a rose.
He'd give roses to the girls, which was pretty scary, given some of the women that used to attend the matches when I was a kid.
I think Buff Bagwell stole the gimmick when he first broke in with Global Wrestling Federation.
Yes, he did. Yeah, he did. That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
He could use that same gimmick today and be the biggest heel.
Oh, yeah, no kidding. We're going to get to a couple of emails. We got a full bank of calls that we're going to get to in just a second. Let me see. This is from someone Simon, who says, from the present, I'm really far more into Rhino than anyone else in the WWF, and I think given half a chance in the future, he's going to be a big star. I mean, he'll be a big star if they push him as a big star. He's got enough to carry the push. I don't know. I mean, immediately upon first view, I don't see him any different than I see a lot of guys. I don't know. What do you think, Brian?
I've been pretty impressed with Rhino lately.
I mean, he's good.
I mean, he had the whole thing coming in when he was just like, he had, when he was in ECW, everyone saw him as this huge guy, and he came in and it was obvious he wasn't as big as he was in ECW TV.
And then he dropped a lot of weight too.
Yeah, but he's held his own.
Yeah, I mean, good worker.
Match with Raven on Sunday, that was awesome.
Yeah, that's right. As for the past, I just rewatched some All Japan women from the early and mid-'90s, and my God, are these women awesome. So far above any company in history when it comes to the quality of the athletes and the performers. And I was wondering two things. How is Manami Toyota doing today? I'm amazed she's still going after her body, all her body's been through. I mean, whenever I watch tapes of her, she's still doing a lot of the same stuff she used to do. I mean, drop kicks off the top rope to the floor, dives from real high heights. She's got very mentally tough.
I think it's pretty clear that there's some people in wrestling that just have that medical miracle body. Mae Young, Ric Flair.
Yeah. No, because she's been hurt, but if you consider everything she's done, she's never had that big injury. Kind of like Ric Flair. I mean, finally, like in the last few years, his rotator cuff started being a real problem. But, like all the stuff he did, he never had the knee problems. He never really had the bad back problems. I mean, he had the back problems, but that was from the plane crash, and considering all those bumps he took on his back, it probably should have been worse.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then he goes, who do you think were the best four in the history of All Japan women? For me, it's Kyoko Inoue, or after Manami, Kyoko, Akira Hokuto, Bull Nakano, and Aja Kong. Is anyone missing from that? Jaguar Yokota was really, really good. Of course, she was from an earlier era. I used to always think that Manami Toyota and Akira Hokuto were the two best, and then I would go with probably Bull Nakano. Maybe Kyoko Inoue Kyoko Inoue was very, very good as well. Bull Nakano, I mean, she paid the price. Although she's golfing at a pretty good level, not quite professional level. And Aja Kong is still wrestling. So anyway, I don't know, Roland, you've seen tapes of all those women, haven't you?
Some of like when we first started the company, and times were slow and there was no money there, and we sat there, we watched a lot of tapes and a lot of footage, and I used to watch the All Japan women. I used to be surprised at how stiff they were, and then I actually thought some of them were tougher than some of the guys, but as we grew and everything, unfortunately, just my time is just so limited. I just haven't had time to look at any footage. I've never even looked at any Noah stuff yet, and I'm anxious to do that.
This is from Sean, who goes, I saw Rock on MTV last night, and he was awesome. In my opinion, the WF is missing him way more than they missed Austin when he was out. I think they're missing him more because when Austin was out, they had Rock as top babyface, and with Rock out, they don't have Austin as top babyface because he's a heel, so they're going with Undertaker. So, yeah, I think he's being missed. Let's see. In ads for Roddy Piper's show in Eugene coming up, it has on the card Mr. Perfect Kurt Hennig, UFC champ Dan Severn, ECW champ Sabu, and XFL player Josh Wilcox. Aren't those copyrighted terms that he wouldn't be legally allowed to use? The only one that he wouldn't be legally allowed to use would be Mr. Perfect, which obviously is using, and, why is he doing it? Because no one's told him not to. But, I mean, UFC champ, Dan Severn was a UFC champ, Sabu was an ECW
Wilcox
champ.
was in the XFL.
Yeah, I mean, you can use those because they really did, but Mr. Perfect is a name that the WF owns. Let's see, this is from Phil, who goes, I'm sure you discussed this subject, but what is your take on the Jerry Lawler versus WWF situation? I think that the Jerry Lawler versus WWF situation is, looking back and everything, I really believe it's as simple as it was when it first came out. I think that it's nothing more than they were mad, and they wanted to get rid of Stacy, and Jerry left. And I don't think there's anything more. I don't think that Vince had this grandiose plan of how he was going to get rid of bring in Paul Heyman for Jerry Lawler, for Jerry Lawler's spot, or that they want to get rid of him because there's so many people in the company that still want Lawler back, but it's that impasse because of Stacy that's, right now it's looking like it's not going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway,
I think Vince is really stubborn too, and the more of these media appearances that Jerry Lawler does, I think it's really
the worse it's going to be for him. Yeah, he was just on WWOR last night. I didn't see it, but I mean, I read the transcript. I mean, there's nothing new. There's nothing new on any of these appearances that you haven't already heard. This is from Vinny in England, who goes, how come the fighters' records in the preview, this is the UFC preview, on the website are incomplete? Kevin Randleman's full record is listed 9-4, but Pat Milch is only listed 7-0 in the UFC. What about his losses outside the UFC? He lost to Jutaro Nakao and Pele. He may have also lost by decision to Kiyoshi Tamura. Yes, he did lose by decision in that match. It says Randy has a 5-1 record and a rings record of 3-2, so rings isn't mixed martial arts. I didn't write it; somebody else wrote it, so it's just how it's written. And but yeah, it's just how it's written. I mean, I could see keeping rings records separate in that the rules are different. Although the rules of every mixed martial arts are slightly different, and when you change the rules, you change the results of fights. As the last Pride show was like total example. Brian, you ended up watching the last
Nixon
Pride.
wasn't on this show.
What, 400-0?
That's right.
Yeah. Brian, did you watch last Pride?
No, not yet.
Okay, with all the okay, I just wondering what your thoughts of the knees. Did Shawn Michaels have the same cocky attitude in the late 80s when he first came to
I was scared to
WWF?
death watching the Pride, I think it was Pride 8 with Vanderlei Silva. I mean, the knees just standing were scaring the hell out of me. I can't even imagine on the ground.
Oh, with Sakuraba was really scary.
Oh,
really
God.
scary. You know, because it wasn't just knees, it was like football kicks.
Yeah, yep.
You know, or soccer kicks, whatever you want to call them. Yeah, he's got, yeah. Did Shawn Michaels have the same cocky attitude? Shawn Michaels and Marty Jannetty got fired like the first or second day they were in the WWF in the 80s. And they went back to the AWA for another year and then got brought back, and they were always in trouble. So, yeah, pretty much. I mean, yeah, pretty much. Let's see. Who are the oldest guys in the WWF roster, and are any of them close to retirement? See, the oldest would be Farouk, right? I think
Farouk's Godfather, Malenko.
Malenko's 40. Godfather's 39 or 40. Undertaker's 39. Farouk is around 42, I'm thinking. Those would be the oldest that I can come up with. And if I'm missing one, I know someone's going to email it in.
Vince.
Yeah, Vince. That's right. Let's see. Is it true that Bob Holly's friendship with Sid prevented a major push in the mid-90s? I never heard that, so I don't know. Let's see. What exactly is the story behind ECW having to apologize to Kurt Angle for an offensive angle after inviting him to the ECW arena after the 96 Olympics? Okay, what happened was they brought him in. He didn't want to do any pro wrestling, and he hated pro wrestling because he was taught to hate pro wrestling. They begged for him to come to an ECW arena show because Paul had this idea of putting over Taz by doing something with Kurt Angle. So it was kind of a double cross on Kurt Angle, but he didn't know it. So anyway, they do their thing, and, you know, Kurt Angle's commentating and not knowing what he's watching at all, but Taz is throwing some cool suplexes, and he's going like, you know, that's good suplexes. And then there's some, like, comment at the end. It's like, Taz is what a professional wrestler is, and Kurt Angle's just an amateur. You know, some comment just to make Taz put over Kurt Angle with Kurt not really knowing it. Well, anyway, at that show, Raven did this angle where it was Raven crucifixion angle. You know, where so anyway, he brought out a cross or something, right? Mm-hmm. And Kurt Angle was real upset about that. You know, not really knowing what pro wrestling is and being very religious. So Kurt Angle threw a big fuss and said he would never do pro wrestling again the rest of his life because of what he saw, which is kind of funny. And you know, Paul Heyman, you know, told Raven to apologize. He didn't really want to, so he gave this, I'm sorry, you know, really half-assed apology. And I mean, Paul Heyman's thing is because he's Jewish and Raven's Jewish, that it was like people might take it as Jewish people mocking, you know, Jesus Christ. So he didn't really want that heat, so he wanted out of that one pretty quick. So that's what that was all about. Whatever happened to Tito Santana? I know he's living in New Jersey, and I think he's working. I think his wife might be working as a hairdresser. You heard anything on that? I know he was going to run for office, and he didn't win. Still working indies, but not that much. He'd be about 48 now. I was wondering what the new Mick Foley book is about. I haven't read it yet. I'm supposed to be getting it any day now. Brawl for All. I heard an interview from Bradshaw who took credit for the idea after it was over. He said he wanted to know who the toughest was. It was his idea. I wouldn't take credit for it after it was over. I read a chat with Brian Blair. He said the Iron Sheik was in the Olympics. Will you put this issue to rest? Yes, he was not. Until someone finds records of it, and we've looked, there are no records of the guy in the Olympics. Let's see. Another person says that it was Bradshaw's idea. Okay. Whatever happened to Tully Bland? We talked about that yesterday. Tully Blanchard. Okay. This. I was just listening to WF Fight This, and the subject came up of the glass ceiling. Uh-oh. They're talking about this, Brian, on their Bite This. The host.
I just read the new one, by the way.
What? Oh, the new WF thing?
Yeah.
It was very sad. It was very sad. What do you have anything to say about it?
I have nothing to say.
Okay, it was sad. Okay, basically the hosts, Kevin Kelly and Tom Pritchard, dismissed it as a couple of people's opinions. They were probably upset their favorites didn't have or weren't wrestling for the title. You know, I could care less. I'm just looking for the future of the company. They wanted to say that Chris Benoit and Kurt Angle were ready to break through the glass ceiling and were going to be big-time players. And they cited the example of The Undertaker. They said a year ago was on the outside looking in, and now he's going for the WF title. That's a great example, guys.
Yes, okay.
The Undertaker is now in main events. Good job.
My favorite was talking about it took Triple H a year and a half to win the Intercontinental title, and all these timelines, and it's like, who cares? What does that have to do with anything? Look at Kurt Angle's career.
Yeah. But, I mean, here's the thing. I remember reading, like someone, you know, the guy wrote something about how Steve Austin had never won a pay-per-view main event until 2 years in the company. And it's like, it's not about winning and losing. It's about how you're portrayed. Number two, that's just absolutely false. I mean, he won the King of the Ring a couple of months into his reign. You know, right after they dropped the Ringmaster, they gave him King of the Ring. And it's like the Bret Hart, Steve Austin match. Okay, not the first one, at the SummerSlam, or the Survivor Series on the Garden, but the one at WrestleMania. Bret Hart won that match, but who was put over in that match? Bret Hart's job was to put Steve Austin over, even though Bret Hart won the match. Mm-hmm. You know, it's like you can win the match and get the other guy over bigger by beating him, and that's the whole key of when, like, you know, it's like, oh, well, Triple H has done this and this. Okay, like Triple H has done jobs for a Brooklyn Brawler or this guy. I'm reading this thing and going, okay, the key is, okay, did any of those guys get over bigger? Is Brooklyn Brawler now a superstar? So he didn't put him over. He laid down for him. You know what I mean? There's a difference. Ric Flair, when he wrestled Sting in that real famous match in '88, he didn't beat Sting. And Sting didn't even beat him. They did a 45-minute draw, and Sting in one night became a superstar.
Sting became a superstar, and made his whole career.
That's right.
Career off a draw.
That's right. It's about how you put the guy over, and that's the whole key to this whole argument. Anyway, let me see. I'm going to go some more. The obvious flaws in their statement are numerous. Since Undertaker was a top star in the WF for years anyway, plus they mentioned that Chris Benoit was once announced as being the WF champion, and that Kurt Angle has already held the title. Wouldn't you think these guys would have already had it explained to them that they have that they've broken through already? I wrote them an email explaining to them that the reasoning behind the glass ceiling idea, that it's not that these guys aren't guys that should be getting ready to be at the next level. It's where the WF has them already right now, and they've already been there, and now they're lower. Of course, I realize the chances of this email being read on a WF Internet show are about the same as the ESPN doing an impartial, in-depth story on the XFL. Okay, now, why would ESPN not do an impartial, in-depth study on the XFL? You know, that's another... Anyway.
Hey, Roland, do you get a chance to watch all the Raw and SmackDown shows, or do you not have time?
I usually do. This like, I got a TiVo, so I kind of like... It automatically records it, and then if I have time that week, I look at it. If I don't, it gets erased. So I try to keep up with it because, you know, it's just good to stay fresh with everything they're doing, just for us, for future storylines and stuff like that, just so that I learn by watching that program sometimes.
Mm-hmm. Now, what are your thoughts like on the top of the card right now?
Pardon?
What are your thoughts on the top of the card right now?
On the top of the card?
It's just like back to Austin and Undertaker.
I think they need, I think they need to push some of the other guys to a higher level, but at the same time, I know what they're doing. Like, even when they do the thing with Triple H wrestling Hardy, all their guys, Vince does a good job of promoting all the guys. And so even the lower level wrestlers, like even a Jeff Hardy, they're so over with the crowd that he's able to put them in main event matches just to give people a different match. Because I remember one time, I was starting to get tired of watching Raw because it was always Rock and Triple H, and that gets old after a while. And I think you just got to keep giving them something fresh. Now, whether they need to be elevated to the point where they're in that top tier or not, I don't know. I think most of them are ready. I think guys like Benoit, I mean, everybody has their own opinion. I think Benoit's ready. I think Angle, I think they kind of backpedaled a little bit with Angle. I don't know why, because he was doing real well, and all of a sudden they kind of died on that.
I think that's why.
You know, Jericho, I think Jericho's overrated. I think he gives good promos, but he's not what I consider a true good wrestler. You know, I don't think he's anywhere near the league of a Kurt Angle or anything, you know, or even a Benoit.
Well, I would agree as far as all that, but at the same time, a year ago, he was ready to be on top, and he's backpedaled a lot.
Oh yeah, no, I think he's backpedaled. There's no doubt, you know, from the WCW.
Maybe more than anybody.
Right.
Oh,
right.
More than anyone, because Benoit's close
pretty much
to where
the same spot.
I think I think Benoit and Angle are a little bit lower than they were last summer, but Jericho's a lot lower.
Yeah.
Let's head right to the phone calls. We got Roland Alexander here. We're going to start with Nick. Nick, what's going on?
How you guys doing tonight?
Doing really good.
All right. I have two brief questions. One, do you think the WWF has any interest in Michael Modest or Christopher Daniels? And two, do you think they're going to bring up any like developmental tag teams? Because I see that division getting pretty stale.
Developmental tag teams to WWF?
Yeah.
I think if they send any developmental guys anywhere, it'll be WCW.
Yeah, well, I'm just saying like the Hosses or something, because I don't know, they're just pulling the same storylines over and over again. Well, except the addition of X Factor.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they may. I haven't heard of any imminent plans. Although I know Ross likes the Haas brothers.
Yeah.
So they may
Probably
get
somebody
a
to
shot.
replace Edge and Christian if they break up.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that's going to happen.
I got very sad yesterday when they played
they're
the
already
Edge and Christian
starting
bit on this show, leading out of a break, and it was so funny. And it's like, oh boy, we're going to lose these two.
Yeah, especially Christian. It's going to be so sad when they break them up because Christian will end up being in that light heavyweight division, and
that didn't work earlier.
What?
That didn't work earlier either when he had the title.
No, well that's their mentality on light heavyweights. It's just one of those things that's never going to get over that big because they won't let it get over that big. And plus, they got an audience that I don't know that their audience will accept it. They've been taught for many years that the small guys are comedy, so.
I think you can re-educate them.
Yeah, but
if they're not going to make an effort to do that, then it's not going to work.
Yeah, but the Southern audience, they accepted like Rey Mysterio Jr. and all, so I think there's got to be some way they can get them over.
Yeah, you're right. If they made a thing where they're going to re-educate them, but every time they say they're going to, they don't.
Yeah, that's true. But Ross wants to. I don't think McMahon wants Ross to do it though.
It's Ross's company. It's not Ross's company. I mean, that's the reality of it.
Yeah.
You know, and when Vince meets a guy and he's 5'7", you know, Vince has a certain mentality about it.
Yeah. And what about Modest? Do you think they have any interest in him?
They know him. They know Modest and Daniels. There's no secrets. I mean, I
know.
I don't think they did right now. They would have picked up those contracts, and they didn't.
Yeah, I think
that tells you what
I heard on the internet.
Yeah, I mean, I cannot give you a reason why they would. I mean, I think that Moss and Daniels are better than a lot of the guys that they kept. Maybe even better than half the guys they kept. And why they and I know their contracts weren't that high, so why they released them, they know who they are. And
I think television exposure has a lot to do with it too. I think Daniels and Modest unfortunately never had the opportunity to get some television time in, and I think that plays a key factor too. Even though they're better than a lot of those guys that they did keep, those other guys have the TV exposure already.
Yeah, and also Modest had that the match on Nitro, and so did Daniels, so that might help a little bit.
But it was only one match.
Yeah, and a couple matches before.
And I would presume that no one from WWF actually saw that match anyway, so.
Yeah, that's true.
All
right. Thank you.
Okay, you're very welcome. And that's the other thing is like, a lot of it also comes from recommendations of people that they've asked. And those people are going to be a lot nicer to people who they worked with day in and day out at the end, as opposed to two guys who came in for one show, did an injury angle, and then were never brought back. There's no
everybody on that show.
Yeah, and then that's another story.
Politics plays a factor. I think even like when we were talking about the tiers of the WWF, I think politics plays a factor in that still.
Oh, but of course it does.
I mean, in Jericho's, in Benoit's case, I think maybe a little bit more than politics. I think the fact that he just can't cut a promo, and today you got to be able to cut a promo, and I think that might hurt him a little bit.
Everyone says that you got to be able to cut a promo, but then I think of Kane and Bill Goldberg, and there's exceptions to those rules.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And if he can't cut a promo, give him someone who can give him Arn Anderson to talk for him. It's not rocket science. If a guy's weak on something, you cover him up. There's a million guys. I mean, there were a million guys who drew money that never uttered a word in the old days because they had some guy like Bobby Heenan with them.
I think Arn Anderson would be a great manager to have in one's corner. I was hoping, like, if everything had gone through with WCW, that Modest would, even though Modest can cut a decent promo, I was hoping that he'd hook up. Because I know Arn was real impressed with Modest's ability. And like you're dreaming, you're thinking, oh, man, I wonder if they'd... But they've gotten away so much from that male manager syndrome that I don't know if they'll ever get back to it.
But it's something that works. I mean...
And this one really has a personality where he doesn't really need to do a lot of talking. He's just a killer.
Yeah. On the DVD of Beyond the Mat, Barry Blaustein says in his audio commentary that Roland tried to work him more than anyone else in the making of the documentary. What do you have to say about that? I didn't even know. I just watched the whole DVD.
I was kind of bummed out when I heard him say that, and I to this day don't know why he felt that way, because one of the things that probably hurts me in my wrestling business is my honesty. I think sometimes I'm too honest, and I don't run my operation the way most typical promoters, low-life promoters would do. And I don't know why he felt that way. I know I can guess, like I know he wanted to film a booking meeting, and I was totally against him doing that. And he claimed that, well, WWF's allowing me to do that. And I had told him, well, okay, then you already had that. Then you don't need it there. And then he thought it was like a personal thing. Like, I want to get into the lives. You know how you saw Tony Jones in his home with his mom and his dad. Like, at the time, my mom was in a rest home, and she had just had her leg amputated. And he thought it would be really cool to go in there. And he was he really pushed for that. And I kept saying no. And I even would talk to Mom, and I go, Mike, I think I'm doing the right thing. I don't want to exploit my mom. I think this is a bad thing. What do you think? You think it's going to put me in a bad way with Barry? And he goes, no, you just got to stick to your beliefs and go with the way. And the other thing we did was we did like a shoot angle the day they were taping. I think you remember that.
I think that's what it was, because I remember that show, and you did that angle, and that angle, everyone in the building, they believed it. So, and then the next day, when it, it was sort of like
the interview the next day at the.
Yeah, I believed it.
He even asked me then. He goes, "Was it a shoot or work?" I told him it was work, and that might have upset him, and that might have thought, because one of the things he said.
Well, I could tell you when that thing was over, we were talking to each other, and I go, what do you think that was? And
Dave, I heard you made a bad comment about me. I heard you were in the parking lot saying, if that was a shoot, that is the lowest thing I've ever seen any indie promoter do.
I did say, I said, yeah, because everyone was saying, because there were guys who were going like, we're never coming back. And then I kept saying, if it's a shoot. You know what I mean?
Right.
If it's a shoot, Roland, yeah.
Beyond everything, I want you to do one thing, Roland. Always be honest in the movie. Always, and be brutally honest. And like, that whole movie, believe me, I went, my income, my gross income from the boot camp went sky high once that movie was released. So it's benefited me in that respect. But, sometimes life isn't all about money. And one of the things, I thought I took a real bad rap in that whole movie. I mean, they're showing the Coke can. They zeroed that in when I was talking about diet. Hey, just because I'm overweight and I'm not a wrestler and I'm not a bodybuilder doesn't mean I can't tell a prospective prospect that he's going to have to change his lifestyle and he's going to have to eat right. The stuff that ended up, the footage that ended up on the cutting floor. For instance, he asked me, what does it take to be a successful promoter? And I said, gosh, I wish I had that answer. This is my exact answer. I wish I had that answer, Barry, but, I'm not a successful promoter. We're losing money with our indie division, but I know that a promoter that I grew up with, that I idolized, a promoter by the name of Roy Shires, he always used to say that to be a successful promoter, you have to be a prick. Well, everything in between got cut, with the exception of you have to be a prick. And the same thing... sorry, I don't even know if I can say that on your show, but anyway, sometimes post-editing can do a lot of stuff. I think he tried to purposely play me off with Tony Jones, because, there's no doubt that promoters always try to get the best of wrestlers, and nowadays the wrestlers are trying to get the best of the promoter, and it's like a game, and so he goes to Tony Jones. The whole Tony Jones thing was never even explained. Like, first of all, my program in the boot camp, it's a 2-year program. After the first year, we kind of get your feet wet when you give you some pro matches. you're still a student. You don't get paid for the pro matches, okay? Not until year 2, okay, when you've completely graduated. And we make that clear and upfront with everybody. But, like when we were doing these gym wars, even though Tony Jones was in that, he was in his second year where he was still being trained but not being paid for pro, he'd have a good match. Like him and Vic Grimes had this awesome match one time. I just couldn't pay everybody and not pay him. So I threw him $20, $25, whatever it was that night, just as a token of appreciation. But yet, it's like Tony's like, he's very green. He doesn't know the business, doesn't know how the business operates, and he's like being asked this question. He says, well, sometimes I get paid, sometimes I don't. There's no excuse for that. You should always get paid. And Tony was so green at the time that he might think, there's no excuse for being paid less than $100 for a match in indie wrestling. Well, hey, I got news for you. I've heard stories of people that paid pizzas, for indie matches. So I think a lot of that was just taken, I don't know. It's
people got a pizza?
Yeah, I've heard people getting payoffs. Yeah, I've heard of that a lot. Or
I've heard that too.
Not getting
Sometimes I never even got pizza.
So, yeah, they used to say Woody Farmer never fed the guy. So, but yeah, Barry's job was to entertain people with that movie, and if that was his job, I think he did a pretty good job with that movie. I thought it was a great movie. I felt bad because I really liked Barry, and I thought Barry liked me, and I was very honest with Barry, and that kind of hurt when I heard that, in the commentary, in his commentary on the DVD.
Anyway, let's go to Kevin. Kevin, what's going on?
Hello?
Hey there.
Hey, what's going on?
Not too much.
Hey, I actually wanted to ask Roland. I'm down here in Fresno, and I was wondering, you guys have been here a couple times. I was at the show at Clovis High. And I was wondering, how come we haven't seen you again?
Well, times were rough. 96. I think we did that show in '96, and I don't know. Indie wrestling's tough, and that market's a 3-hour market. It's 3 hours away from us, and it's a tough market to draw in. And the only people I know that have drawn in that market is WWF and Shires in his days. But everybody else, every indie promoter that's ever gone in there has not done well. And since it's so far from home, we've just chosen not to go into that market.
Yeah, how about, I know that there's at least been one guy down here that's pretty shady that was kind of killed the place, a guy by the name of the Sizzler.
Yeah, he's one of them, and there's a guy out of L.A. that was, putting sold shows together, advertising guys like Jannetty and whatnot, and then nobody'd show up, and he wouldn't refund everybody, and he'd already left town with the money, and there's a lot of shady stuff. It's unfortunate for Fresno wrestling fans, but, for us, it's kind of tough, and you just have to wait till WWF comes to town. Even the AAA guys, I don't think, did well when they went to, and you would think... No,
the Mexicans never did. Fresno should have been a good market for them, and it never really was.
A good market for them. It wasn't. So I don't know what it is about Fresno, but it's like Stockton. There's certain markets that I know pretty well because of the Shire. They just, like Stockton was never a draw, even for Shires. Well, heck, if you're not WWF, you're dead trying to promote Stockton.
Well, I mean, this is a marked town. For God's sakes, we hired an actor for our mayor, so... We got Alan Autry from In the Heat of the Night as the damn mayor now, so it's a
marked town. You didn't get Rob Black, though.
Hopefully fans will, from the Fresno area, like when we come close, like we've been in Merced, and we didn't draw well in Merced, and I thought we might draw some fans from Fresno and everything, and the commercial rate.
So that's a pretty far drive from Merced to Fresno.
Yeah.
Oh, it's about an hour.
It's a good hour.
It's an hour?
Isn't it?
And wrestling, you're right, Dave. The wrestling fans, unless you're the WWF, wrestling fans will probably not drive more than 15 or 20 minutes to go to a show.
Well, it's just too bad because I know we've got basically what's going to be Selland Arena down here is going to be empty because we're building the new arena for Fresno State basketball, and I could just really see an indie if somebody was able to build something, down here. I think that would be a great place for them to basically own the building.
That's probably a little out of our league.
But that's a little too big for indie.
Yeah,
that's like 9,000, 10,000 seats.
Definitely out of my league, but I do have goals of like I would love to build APW to the point where we can run some of the old stuff that Shires used to run in. Like I'm partial to those municipal auditoriums. Like San Jose Civic was one of my favorite places to see a wrestling show at. Even Oakland Auditorium now, Kaiser Convention, they've done a lot of work there. And I hear that's a real nice building, probably out of our league now.
Yeah. Anything else?
No, just looking forward to more shows. So thanks, guys.
Okay, let's go to Ed in Texas. Ed,
what's
up? Doing good.
I wanted to ask y'all one question for you, Dave, and one for Roland. But first, I wanted to clarify the Paul Diamond you were talking about earlier. Is that Venom?
No, this is a different Paul Diamond. This is a Paul Diamond from the 70s.
Okay, I didn't think so. Okay, I just wanted to
Roland, what's that Paul Diamond's name?
His real name?
Yeah.
I think it is Paul Diamond.
It's not, no, because I remember what his real name, I remember.
Okay, then I
Paul Diamond's not his real name, and the other guy's real name's Tom Boric, which was the one who wrestles in Winnipeg now.
The
and
original was the guy that passed out the roses, our Paul Diamond from Northern California.
Yeah.
Okay, my question for Roland is, and I'm real curious about this, is Roland, since you're an instructor and you have a school, how do you go about teaching guys to sell?
That's very tough, and there's certain things you can't, like charisma, you can't teach charisma. The sell, I don't know, I think it's just one of those things you have or you don't. Like, we put a lot of stress in it because I think, with the product we deliver, excuse me, I think it's one of the most important things that you can do. Like, one of our best sellers is Boyce LeGrand, and I don't know if you get a chance to look at clickmovie.com, but there's a match up there with Boyce LeGrand and Christopher Daniels, and it's one of the few matches where you'll be able to see this style of wrestling from the year 2000, where a guy picks a body part, works on it, and yet the guy sells the body part well enough, to where the match can, there's a story there. And so selling is so important, and we spend time teaching it, but it's just one of those things that no matter how much we hammer at it, it's one of those things, you got to have. Like, I try to tell people, just close your eyes and believe that whatever you're doing right now is real. Like, if somebody punched you in the mouth, how would you sell that? Well, I'll tell you what I do. I
spit up my teeth
with my finger and see if there's any blood, see if my teeth are there. That's a real believable sell, and so we try to tell people, just picture yourself in a real situation. Like if somebody punched you in the gut, my God, you'd double over, you'd be gasping for breath. That's the way you have to sell that.
You know who you were saying that? You know who does that probably better than anyone in the business is Kawada. Kawada. Yeah. Toshiaki Kawada in All Japan.
And from our day, with what we grew up with, Dave, Pepper Martin.
Really? I remember Pepper Martin real well, but
Pepper Martin and Pepper Gomez too. Actually, like sometimes
really
they throw up.
See, you're a little older than me, and I only remember I just remember Ray Stevens taking those big bumps and making those job guys look like world beaters.
Well, I'll tell you, if those times were Gomez, I'd look at his face after a punch, and I could swear I see red. And I will say this: now that you bring up Gomez, I saw a match at the San Jose Civic, and it was the Great Mephisto against Pepper Gomez, where Mephisto crotched Pepper Gomez, and it was actually a spot that you see in a million matches. And I mean, oh my God! I mean, it was like, what a sell. And I don't
know if you remember that, but I mean, he sold it like, he had been castrated, and that that he would never wrestle again. And then it turns out, of course, he's wrestling on Saturday, but
I think most of Shire's guys sold well. I think that was something Shire stressed to the boys, and because I can't remember too many guys that could not sell. There was a couple that had that phony sell. Like Billy Graham used to do the phony sell. I hate the phony sell. I just like the.
He was so green when he was here too. You got to remember, he was the second year in.
Yeah. Oh yeah. That's true. He's very green. Yeah.
Yeah. Anything else?
Yeah, Dave, my question for you is, it's about an old pay-per-view. I don't remember the name, but I remember the main event with Kerry Von Erich against Jerry Lawler for the...
Yeah, it was AWA Super Clash, I think it was, from Chicago.
Yeah, and my question was being, since that was supposed to unite, like, the AWA and World Class, but it ended up creating USWA, and a few months later, the AWA had their title back, and I was wondering what happened there.
Jerry Lawler and Vern Gagne it was actually over that show. I think Lawler didn't get paid for that show, so he just stopped going to the AWA, and when he stopped going to the AWA, they stripped him of the title and gave it to, and I don't remember the time, it may have been Zabisco.
Somebody it was the Battle Royal with the Z-Man in it.
Oh, the Battle Royal that Zabisco threw out Zinc to win. Okay, so that's what happened. So Lawler and Vern had were on the outs with each other, and Vern just created a new AWA champion. So that's what happened there.
Okay. And one last thing before I go about the Iron Sheik. I heard an interview that he did, and at one time he claimed it was Munich, and a minute later it was Mexico City.
Yeah, I know. and it wasn't
that is
either.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And it was, like I say, it was barely a minute later that he was saying that.
Yeah, it's the Iron Sheik too.
Was that the Olympics that they had from like 3 different auditoriums?
That was WrestleMania too.
Okay, guys. Well, thanks a lot.
When we get to a couple of emails, we also got someone just sent over the Ross report, so we'll look through the Ross report in just a second. This is from Dave, who says, "Don't you think modern wrestling is missing the element of surprise? For example, Would it hurt to do more title changes on house shows? Wouldn't that help? I don't. There's nothing wrong with doing title changes at house shows.
It only helps if it can help and it can hurt, because if you're going to do a title change on a house show and you show it on TV and you make a big deal out of it, I think it'll help house show business. But if you do it like WCW, where you change a title on a house show and then completely ignore it, it just makes people in those markets feel like such goofs, like they don't even matter.
Or if you do like
in their town means absolutely nothing.
I think that if you do the Friday-Saturday thing where you change it on a Friday, change it back on a Saturday, and Monday you never talk about it, I think that's totally counterproductive. Because then the people in the two towns feel like that they've been ripped off.
Dave and I grew up with the Shires thing, and they never even had title matches at house shows except for Fresno, Sacramento, and Cow Palace. Like San Jose.
And Vegas.
Yeah. But every now and then he'd throw a title match in San Jose, but it was like once every 2-3 years or something, you know.
Yeah, because that made the titles mean more, though.
Right, exactly.
Because the title, generally speaking, the title would be defended about twice a month, because usually you'd get like the tag team title might be on the Sacramento card and this heavyweight title on the Cow Palace card or something like that.
And it made the shows itself where the titles were defended a more of a big show than the others. And like the way Shires used to do it, he'd try to have his little market, San Jose, Medina, but they always went to those shows, but he always tried to draw them to the big shows, like they all went to Cow Palace or Fresno or Sacramento, depending on, market that they were in.
Right. Like he would run San Jose every week or two, but if you lived in the San Jose market, I mean, there was no question the big show to go to was the Cow Palace, not San Jose.
So the San Jose fans, they would go to the Salinas shows, maybe the Watsonville shows, but they'd never miss the Cow Palace,
Yeah.
They may not go to a Stockton or Sacramento, but they would go to the ones in
Nobody
their
went
market.
to Stockton except for you, Roland.
Pardon?
From San Jose.
Yeah.
I would have been the other one, and I didn't have my license. I was too young.
Let me tell you, that's the first time I met David Meltzer was in San Jose, and I didn't formally meet him, but I was sitting in the back of Rocky Johnson's car, and with Dave Williams. I don't know if you remember a guy by the name of Dave Williams.
I remember Dave Williams,
good friend of mine. And you, at the time, I think you were into photography or something. You couldn't have been more than 13 or 14.
Oh, I was younger than that.
Maybe younger than that. And you came up with your book, and I remember Dave saying, Dave Williams goes, "What's this guy want?" I go, "Hey, no, maybe it was me that said, what's this guy want?" And Dave said, "Hey, don't bother him. He's got good pictures." I distinctively remember this whole scenario. It was in the back parking lot.
I don't remember it, but I'm sure it's true because I remember the photography part, and I just remember you and Moondog Moretti. As long as I ever went to wrestling, you guys were, and Robert Thompson's father. I always remember you guys sitting together.
Well, John Swinski used to chase us with the posters. Tickets. Let me
He chased me too.
He's still around, I think.
He used to chase me. That guy scared every kid my age that ever went to wrestling was scared to death of John Swinski.
Yes.
Oh my God, he would just chase you around and like, get out of here, kids, and all this. He was the promoter at San Jose.
Dave,
he's a mean guy.
Dave, because Dave used to distribute the posters for him at the merchants and stuff, and it didn't matter. Like he'd see Dave with me, he was like, "Hey, let me see your tickets." He just chases.
Yeah, he hated everyone.
Yep.
It's a good promoter, huh, Brian?
Yeah.
Scaring all the kids that go to your matches into not coming back. If I didn't love wrestling so much, I probably never would have gone back.
Exactly. No.
Who needs kids at wrestling anyway?
I used to love going there, but I used to just dread, because I knew one time
we all did.
I was going to have a
We used to dread seeing John Swinski even when we went.
Uh-huh.
The scariest part of the wrestling show was that John Swinski, if we got out of our chair, or I would get up to shoot a picture, and he would run after me and try to chase me away, and don't you be shooting pictures, Yep.
And he was the ring announcer. That was quite a show, San Jose. Memories. Yeah.
Let me go through some of this real quick. Is Ming older than Farouk? I'm not sure of the birthdays, but Ming's probably 41, 42. Ming would be one of the oldest too. He's the one I left out, and actually we got many emails about me leaving out Ming, but that's right. He's 41, 42. Was Bob Backlund the only wrestler ever to lose a title by throwing in the towel? I'm sure he wasn't, but off the top of my head, I can't come up with another one. But I remember a lot of towel throwing finishes. That wasn't that unusual.
Bret Hart.
Bret Hart, right? Bret Hart and Bob Backlund with Owen Hart, or actually, was it the mom threw the towel? Helen threw the towel, yeah.
I think Helen grabbed it from Owen and threw it in.
Right. How come Owen never threw it in? And they were trying to convince Stu to throw it in for like 10 minutes and he wouldn't, and then finally Helen threw it in, right?
Yeah.
That was weird.
Because I guess they would have known what Owen was up to if he'd thrown it in himself.
Oh, okay. Has there been any dialogue between New Japan and WWF? No. Here's some Ross Report stuff. Let's get up. I said Backlash was solid and the wrestlers worked hard. The wrestlers always work hard. And Cena was solid. Yeah. Dean Malenko has a shoulder injury and took a cortisone shot. Scotty 2 Hotty still having neck problems. The MRI last week showed little improvement. Oh, that's too bad. Perry Saturn has severely bruised bicep, but he will not miss any time, so it was not a broken arm. Regal is working despite the fact that his shoulder is not 100%. He had it dislocated last week. Still working on it. K Quick will be out until his ribs fully heal. Devon Dudley has a sore shoulder, doesn't need surgery. Grandmaster Sexay cut his left leg, but he's okay. Mick Foley did an interview with the New York Times. Oh, that should be interesting. Hunter and Stephanie will be doing Heat on Sunday. I knew that. UPN 9 will be doing their piece next Thursday on Bradshaw's stock picking ability. I hope they talk about his WWF stock. Last year, Bradshaw doubled his portfolio. I mean, I don't know what he did in his other stock, but the WWF has not done so good since February. He goes, Ross goes like this. Hopefully it will be a better feature than some of the UPN affiliates have done in the past. I guess they're mad at some of those puff pieces that have been done. Kurt Angle and China will be on The View next Wednesday to promote getting people to vote. Oh, they got Angle on that show, too. Raven will be doing more public appearances. That's cool. Lita's going to be at the E3 convention. Taz is going to throw out the first pitch of a Mets-Dodgers game. Anyway, we are totally out of time, and we'll see everyone tomorrow at 5.